And here we go. We are on the DJVonFire podcast, and just a reminder of why we're here. Number one is I want to get to know people, but I want second place people to get to know the people of second place. So that's kind of mission one. And then mission two is for me to share a little bit about my past year and kind of where I started and what I've gone through and kind of the things that I've learned along the way. And so that's kind of my mission as we go. Make sure you subscribe and hit notifications. This is not a job. This is a hobby. I am not getting paid for this. If there's commercials, I didn't put them in there. YouTube has taken control of everything. So again, my producer, as always, for the time being, is Jonathan Andrew Vales. And my guest today, I'm kind of excited about my guest today because she's got a lot to pack in this time, is Hannah Michelle Francis, HMF.
Yes.
HMF on the DJVonFire podcast. And so, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
First, how we met, and then what brought you to second place. So we met, again, my family's all over the back of second place. They're all over working, what do you do? Historia.
Sound. And sound.
Sound. And Marissa's running the child care and the child ministry, and David and Kaylee all around. And so Ethan usually hangs out with me, and you had run into him many times.
He hung out in like the office at youth. And back when I wasn't a coach, but I was bringing students, like I was their ride, I would also hang out in the office at youth, and so we would just chill. So
got it.
Yeah.
So, you stopped over one time, and you stood out a little bit because you had shaved your head.
Yes.
So here's this person coming over saying hi to my son with a shaved head. There's always the Britney Spears immediate reaction, but then there's always a story behind it.
Yeah.
So do you have a 30-second quick?
30 seconds. I had just always wanted to, and I had always been like afraid to, because I liked my hair, and I was like, how am I gonna look without hair? And then a student at the time, who was like that's another family that I'm really close to at second place, is the Markwarts. Grace and I were talking, and we realized we both had really wanted to shave our heads for a while, and neither of us had the guts to. So we were like, let's just do it together. So 1.5 years later, we both shaved our heads. Honestly, great experience. Morning showers took like 5 minutes. It was fantastic. I want to grow my hair out, but like that was a big perk. Dried in like 2 seconds. Loved it.
And so how was your grow out experience? Was it all right?
It was.
Were you able to like manage every hairstyle along the way?
This is going to sound, I feel like I'm going to sound conceited, but it's literally never looked bad. I have not cut it since. I just let it, except for my bangs. Like I cut my bangs because I want to keep them like bangy. And like literally I haven't trimmed, I haven't adjusted, and it just looks good all the time. I don't know how or why, but I'm very grateful.
And then fast forward maybe a year, because I feel like it was right at the end of 2019.
Thanksgiving, like right after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So then fast forward, and now you were a house guest for us. While you were starting a new endeavor.
Yes.
Before you get to that,
let's
talk about like how did you even end up at second place?
So I came to Olivet. The story of me coming to Olivet is a whole other thing, and we might be able to get into it later. But the abridged version is Jesus told me to go to Olivet. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know anybody there. The only time I'd ever been to like the Chicago area was when I was like 16.
You're
I went there
Ohio?
for my birthday. Yeah.
Ohio, okay.
So I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Came to Olivet, didn't know anyone. I didn't have a car on campus because my brother still needed like the car that we shared. So I was just kind of there, like I was like, I have no idea any of the churches in the area. It's a Nazarene school. I am not Nazarene. So I was like, I don't know what's going on. And my RA just randomly one time like pops her head into the room when like me and a couple other girls are hanging out, and she goes, "Hey, I have 4 seats in my car. We're gonna go to my church this weekend. If anybody wants a ride." I was like, "Oh, I don't have a car and I don't know anyone, so that's actually perfect. I will definitely hitch a ride with you." And it ended up being the warehouse, and we pulled up, and I was like, "This is a warehouse complex. Are we?"
It's a little sketchy.
It was weird. And then I walked in and immediately was like, "Oh, okay, this feels like home." And then I have just been there ever since. So this is going to be my 7th year at Second Place.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that before we even started recording. I didn't know that 7 years. So that's what's weird about like meeting you a year ago.
Yeah.
And then be like, "Oh, she's been here 6 years. I've been here 10 years." And,
Yeah.
But I feel like paths crossed at kind of the right time. And it worked out for you.
Yeah.
Because here you are as a house guest because you got a career, you got started a new job.
Yeah, I got a new job. So I had to be in the area. So.
And Jonathan, we could get a shot of the entire, we are doing this from her new apartment. And so as you look around, it's about the best view you can get here. But she just started moving in. She's got her kitchen table here, some chairs. She's got her candles burning.
The kitchen table and chairs, which were yours.
I wasn't going to say it, but you're slowly moving it in. And so I thought, what a great, I mean, this is where we have to shoot this. This would be perfect. So we're here, and I think it's going well. The other thing we talked about, which is kind of what I'm excited, like the more I thought about it, because we talked about maybe a week ago, I said, you know, what kind of angle can we talk about? What are you passionate about? Mm-hmm. Well, 2 things really. One is like the first couple of days that you were with us, I'd come down and you were already at the table reading or writing or doing something. So can you speak to that little, and you said that it's, you know, you try to do it religiously, meaning daily, but even sometimes it doesn't always go to plan, but at least the first couple of mornings I saw you, like you were on to it. So what was it that you were doing?
So I like to try and start my day just kind of hanging out with God because I know myself and my schedule, and like regardless of what I had planned for the day, I know that it's going to be like one thing after the other. So I'm like, okay, I really treasure time, just like we call it TOG at youth, just time alone with God. And I like to get alone and like read just like a short passage of scripture. I have like a journaling copy of Jesus Calling. There's like a Beth Moore book that I'm going through right now. So like, depending on like what book I'm reading, like if it's like a Christian book, a lot of times they have like journal prompts in the back, so I'll like journal through on those. I try to journal as often as possible. Lately, because of the moving, and I've been like back and forth to Ohio a couple times, it's gotten a little like haven't been able to keep up with it as much as I'd like to, but it just became a lot more important to me the past year because I a lot of the time didn't have a place that I could go be alone for like a while. So I was like, okay, like now I have time, I have a place, I can like sit and like just chill out for a second. So
can you feel when you're not having it regularly? The difference.
And
maybe not even at the moment. But like after a few, you're like, it's totally because you weren't getting your talk time. All right. It's always a good, I'm trying to think of like, some people do it in the morning, some people do it at night. I feel like morning is a good time, although it's not always easy for people. But whether it's the morning, night, some people I know, lunchtime.
Yeah.
Like that's their lunch hour.
Back when I was driving all of the time across several state lines, I would just like, there would be times where I would just be like, okay, I just got to turn off the radio, turn off the music. And I know people hate doing that. But I would literally just like no music, no podcasts, nothing, and just sit alone in my car all the way down I-70 and I-65, and just like talk out loud. And I like, those are like, driving back and forth from Ohio to Illinois is something I'm pretty familiar with anyway. And just to like, sometimes it just like, I can literally feel like, it's weird, but I can literally like feel God's like sitting right in the front seat, just like chatting with me. And sometimes I'm like, do you want to drive? Because I'm kind of tired. But
so you were the original Carrie Underwood. That was your idea? Is that what you're trying to say?
I mean, she didn't credit me, but we'll see.
Okay, so what's interesting is that you said you shut the music off and just have quiet time with God.
Yeah.
But the flip side to our conversation is I talked about I gave up dessert, I gave up pizza, I gave up pop. And then the thing that I don't always talk about, but was important to me, was I gave up secular music.
Okay.
Right? Which means I was just going to listen to Christian. On my radio, I would turn on, this is being recorded in Chicago, so like K-Love.
Yeah.
The only reason it wasn't 89.7 Shine is because it didn't always come in. But technically I was K-Love on there, and then if my wife ever drove a car, I get in and it was on like a different station. Country is typically what she turned on. So
Yeah.
I'd get halfway down the road and then realize it's not on the station I listen to. So, but I just made that, and I just wanted that to be another focus, was the music.
Yeah.
Because I'll throw back to the 90s with the best of them. I was probably an awful example to my kids. Shit. I mean, I don't know if it's awful or...
Great.
Really, we're very eclectic. We listen to everything. I mean, we like Carrie Underwood, but we like our rap music, we like our rock, we like a variety. However, I wasn't expecting listening to the Christian music and having that be my only option as something that was going to be so kind of like life-changing or and so when we brought it up and we talked about it a little bit, you were like, yeah, like music's kind of important. And I think I asked you the day you sang at church, because you're up there singing whenever they need you, or monthly or whatever it is. So obviously it's important to you. You're a singer. What else have you dabbled in? I started out with trumpet. I tried to do trumpet, and the band teacher's like, your arms are too long, you should play trombone. I was trombone for the next 6 years. So that's that's the only musical instrument, and I would not consider myself a singer. So you're a singer. What else do you dabble with?
I dabble a little bit in piano. I'm currently learning guitar from our very own Micah DeCenzo. And I strum a little ukulele here and there. So that's...
All right.
Yeah. Played violin for a whole 6 months. So that's... I'm going to throw it.
Do you catch yourself, like, when you're singing, is it, like, anywhere and everywhere? Do you sound the best in the car? Or...
everywhere. I just, like, in the car a lot of the time. Like, sometimes, speaking of turning off the music, like, sometimes, like, I'll either be singing along to the music, or I'll be, like, if I am just, like, I just want to sing whatever I want, I'll just turn it off and, like, make it up. Those sometimes just live in my notes app in my phone. And sometimes, every once in a while, get sent to Micah, because I'm like, you can do things with this. I can't. So there you go, bud. But, yeah, so it's just fun.
I know that music is, because it touches on, like, an emotional level, which then affects the physical, like any music. Yeah. Any music. You can remember where you were or what you were going through. And when you hear a song, it, like, triggers something in your past, typically. Yeah. No matter what kind of music it is. You're like, oh, I remember that song, I was doing this, or I was here, this is where I was in my life. I remember being young. Now I'm older than you. Like our groups were like DC Talk and Audio Adrenaline. Have you ever heard of them before?
I have heard of both of them. The first fun, very short story, the first time I ever heard the song Jesus Freak was in a diesel pickup truck in Thailand. That was the first time, and that was a real trip.
How do you have a really short story of diesel truck in Thailand? And then be like, go to the next question. But, I mean, we'll try. So, sometimes when Christian music tries to go secular with their sound, there's just something, it's just not all right.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you hear secular music and it sounds, they try to put in phrases that are Christian-y, but it doesn't sound right.
Mm-hmm.
There's something different about Christian music. I'm reading a book now called Good Vibes, Good Life, and it talks about vibrations, and I'll leave that out there for anybody that wants to decide if there's vibrations in life and what that means to them from an atomic level all the way on up. But I feel like good Christian music, or what can be explained after a year of like just focusing on Christian music, is like it's when your spiritual and your emotional and your mental and your physical kind of like all aligns. When you hear a good worship song, like there was one song, Anything Is Possible. It was like August, September. I don't even know if many people even know it yet, but by Bethel Music, like it was a day that I listened to like 5 hours straight. I mean, it's like a 4-minute song. And like as soon as I got to the end, it was like play it again and play it again. And like I'm not an emotional person. I don't cry a lot, but like there was something in the song like it like lined up for me that day. Yeah. So what can you speak to about the music you listen to? You could be specific with bands or just that idea, or what's that mean?
Well, I mean, obviously I'm going to have to talk about Need to Breathe, because the reason that we're talking about music today is because you were playing one Need to Breathe song in the kitchen, and I made you listen to me talk about Need to Breathe for, I think, 20 minutes.
I do remember this, yes.
But I want to bring up, I don't remember the exact quote. It is definitely from a book called Chasing Francis, which I highly recommend, not just because my last name is in it.
Yeah, I got it.
But it is the reason that St. Francis is my favorite saint. And there's a part in it where they're not talking about music, they're actually talking about like cathedrals in Europe. And the just awestruck feeling, and the way that you can like really like in some of them you just like feel the presence of God like more like just there. And the main character of the book is like, why is that? And he's running around Italy with a monk, is the premise of the book. And the monk that he's talking to says, well, if God is the definition of beauty, then true beauty on earth is going to reflect who God is. And that has stuck with me since the first time I read it. And I think that that's really true with music, particularly because, I mean, like, music is talked about throughout the scriptures. The Psalms are all supposed to be songs. I mean, when it's said multiple times that like when we are in heaven in the presence of God, like we're going to be singing songs of praise. So clearly music is important to God. So, if that is true, and then like truly beautiful music that is speaking truth, regardless of whether it's Christian or secular, because there are some secular songs that you'll just be like, holy cow, man. And it's because like, just because they might not know the truth that they're tapping into doesn't mean they can't tap into the truth. But like if it is like good and true music, like it's gonna hit something in you because it's reflecting a good and true God. And so I actually had a song like that when speaking of Need to Breathe, I discovered in high school, and I was like, how did I not know about this band? And I have been obsessed with them ever since. And I went to my first Need to Breathe concert in 2018, the summer of 2018, with a very large group of people from church.
Where was this at?
This was up, might have been Soldier Field.
Somewhere in Chicago?
Yeah, it was in Chicago for sure. It wasn't Soldier Field because it was like a pit, and then anyway, we went and we actually didn't have pit tickets, and then there was a guy walking around with wristbands, and he was like, "Do you want them?" And I was like, "Yes." Are you kidding? Absolutely. So anyway, I forgot to breathe for about half of that experience. It was very solid. But
you need to breathe. She set me up.
That was a Hannah joke. So this summer when Need to Breathe dropped like their singles leading up to their new album, which is called Out of Body, and I highly recommend it to everyone. There is not a single bad song on that album. They released the song Who Am I? And I was in North Carolina visiting Nicolette and Aaron at the time. And I, like, in my, literally on repeat, I was like, I already know I'm going to be listening to this on repeat. So I just hit like on the Spotify, like you can just make it like, it was the amount of times I listened to that. It came out this summer, and on my Spotify Wrapped, it was, I think, my second most listened to song. And I was like, yeah, that checks out, actually. Need to Breathe has been my top artist for like the last 5 years. So I'm like not surprised anymore. I'm like, oh, shocker. But yeah, I like each album means something different. Like there are albums that I can pick out and be like just hit me in different ways. And there will be like some songs that we sing in worship at church that like they'll play it and I will have never heard it before, and I'm like, okay, like this is incredible. And I think that there's something, I think it's music and like storytelling in general, I think is really, really incredible in that we tend to like feel these emotions that we think like, oh, I might be the only one feeling this. I think I'm the only one, like nobody's ever talked about dealing with this before. And then you hear a song that you're like, that's exactly how I feel. So clearly at least one other person is feeling what I'm feeling, unless they read my diary and made a song out of it. And so songs like The Story I'll Tell, Maverick City Music, like I listened to that and I was like, yes, exactly, 100%. And then on the flip side of that, when we sang Find Me in the River, which they talked about it before they sang it, they were like, this is kind of a weird song to sing in terms of worship. But songs like that, which if you've never heard Find Me in the River, it is a song basically about like, hey, God, I don't know where you are. I can't see you. I can't feel you. And I'm very confused and upset right now. So like, I'll be chilling in the river if you want to come hang out. And songs like that are especially close to my heart because I have had many times throughout my life where I've just been like, I don't know where you are. Like, I just don't know where you're at. And like, I know you're there because I've experienced it before and I know what I know. So I'm not gonna like shut out like what I know empirically, like from evidence in my own life, which is why I keep journal after journal and I like keep them and I do go back and read them because when I hit those moments, I'm like, I literally have journal entries where it's like me and God in conversation. I write down what he is saying to me. Yeah. And so I go back and read those and I'm like, this is real and I'm not crazy, so just stick it out. But I think those songs are really important because it's like, I like all of the guilt and the shame that you feel from like not feeling it. I think that speaks to that especially. And I think it's so important, especially to have that connection of like, hey, I also feel this thing, specifically when it's things that feel very shameful and feel very like I have to hide this. And so songs that sort of bring stuff like that to light, like shame and lies like can't survive in the light. So as much as the light can hurt sometimes to shine on like your little secrets and your doubts and your shame, as soon as the light hits it, like it's gone. There's no more, the shame is gone. The not necessarily the doubt, because there's always going to be that. And I think that's a big part of faith. But to shine like the light on something that feels shameful, like all of a sudden, once it's out in the light, not only is your shame gone, but all of a sudden other people who can relate to you, they're like, oh, okay. And they feel the confidence to step out of shame and into the light. And so I feel like music like that in particular is very powerful and really important to me.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk a whole hour on all of that. I like that last part where you're like, it shines truth on, kind of like light on darkness, and sometimes you don't even know you're in the darkness until you have that truth kind of revealed, as you were kind of explaining. Before we were on camera, you talked about starting out as a dancer. Do you feel like, I didn't ask you could still dance, but do you feel like that's why there's still kind of a connection? Because physically, it's your physical body and dancing, and then you mix that with the emotion of music. And do you think that's why it's a little bit, not that music's not important to everybody, but to you it might mean a little bit more. Do you feel like there's a tie to the dancing? This was an unscripted question, so I don't know what to say on it.
I feel like it must be, because like even I was talking to somebody about like how you count the music in your head, and I was like, I literally don't, because I've been dancing since I was 3. So instead of counting, I just like, I feel like the counts. So yeah, I've never really thought about it that way, but I think that must play a role in it. Cause I've been like told to feel the music since I was 3 years old. So, I think that definitely built the connection there, especially at such a young age.
When you're, again, another unscripted question, when you're on stage singing worship, like how hard is it to, or maybe you don't try to like remember what you're up there to do? Like how hard is it to like, or have you ever had a moment where you're like just lost in it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I'm up here in front of everybody, I'm supposed to be worshiping, but I'm like literally in worship, like God is, His Spirit is, all around you at that moment. Have you had moments like that? Every time, a little bit?
Yes, I have. There are like other moments where I'll catch myself and be like, I'm focusing so much on like, what's the harmony here? And I'm like, just sing, like shut up and sing. And then there are moments where I'll like come back after a song and I'm like, okay, that was a good one. And so I mean like it's either way, worship is like, it's a practice. And I think that's something that like, Joe recently, like a couple weeks ago, I think, like had us all like actually physically raise our hands. And he was like, I know that this is like not technically like what you're supposed to do, but like just raise your hands. And I think that sometimes like that is important, and it is important to like, I have stood there and I have sung words that I'm like, I don't feel like I believe this right now, but I know that it's true, so I'm going to sing it because I know it's true, so I'm gonna sing it until I feel it. And so that can be looked at as very like fake it till you make it, but I think that there is something to be said. And I'm also very deeply invested in like Jewish culture because my mom was raised Jewish. So her whole side of the family is Jewish. So I love like researching it and then learning more about it. And I actually did a whole summer. This is so much. I did a whole summer back in 2018 where every single Sunday I intentionally did not work. I didn't do anything. I turned my phone off and I practiced the Sabbath as like truly as I could. And it's hard, especially in this day and age, because like technically you're not even supposed to like light a candle. You're not supposed to cook. You're not you don't produce anything. And so I did like a month or two where every Sunday I just really tried to like at least honor the spirit of the Sabbath. But another thing that they do is basically like there are a lot of physical religious practices in Judaism, and it can seem very legalistic, but at the core for a lot of them, it's like we do this to get in touch spiritually with like, it's like taking communion. We do a physical practice because we want to acknowledge and honor and experience Christ giving his life for us. And, you know, sometimes you're really going to get like emotional about it and you crack open your Bible and you read like Jeremiah and you're like, and then sometimes you're just like, okay, like this, I'm going to do it. And I think that doing the physical practices really helps ground you outside of an emotional religion, because that in like the rockiest parts of my faith, I'm like, gosh, if my faith was entirely rooted in how I felt, I wouldn't have any. And so I think that emotion can inform faith, and like not emotion can inform faith. And it's important to just have both. And so in worshiping, I'm like, I just want to focus on the words that I'm saying, and I want to mean them as much as I can.
I liked a couple of the things that have come out now as you talked. The one was, you know, taking every Sunday during a period of time and just saying, I want it to be truthful and as true as a Sabbath as you can make it. Or just turning off the car radio and like the entire drive being without music, or my year without trying to focus on just Christian music as I was listening to it. I think people, it's a way to like tie back to, I mean, reconnecting. It's a wilderness time, right? Yes. Jesus went away for 40 days and it was his wilderness time. And I feel like as he leads by example, like even though you just did it for whatever it was, and it was, okay, specifically this is what you're choosing, and on Sundays you did that, and like you said, it wasn't always easy, and especially nowadays, but you stuck with it, or shutting off the car radio, or whatever the different things in your life. You probably have a whole list, like if I pushed you on it, like during this time I did this, and then this time I did this, and if you went back to your journal, you could probably find times where you didn't even think of it as those moments, but it's so important for people to like reconnect through those, I'll call them wilderness times, but and so if you're like, I can never get up music, I can never shut off my car radio, I can never, you know, take my Sundays and just, you know, go to church and go home, like it's more than that. And until you put yourself out there to do that, and sometimes you find once you start one of those, like that's your new norm, like you find out that it's something you need in your life. To do. Maybe it's a Saturday night, you just start to stay in, and all of a sudden you realize like you need that to have the best week of your life, or whatever, to have, you know, have your week go the best way, I guess I should say. Or if you do it, or you do it for a short time, you feel rejuvenated, and then you let that go and you wait for something else to come up. You kind of jumped on my quotes. Kaylee had me add you to them, and so I sent you a week's worth from this period last year. And so I kind of want to read through them, and then what I have every guest do is kind of just pick the one that sticks out to you, and yours just happens to be the first one. So seeds burst from the inside out in a self-destruction ritual of new life, which to me is fitting. The reason I put it in here is because it's January, like rebirth, right? And it's not springtime. I guess I could have put this in March, but I don't know if I'll even read my explanation. I think I should just let you have your time here. And when you read that out of the 7, you're like, this is the one I kind of want to speak to. So seeds burst from the inside out in a self-destruction ritual of new life.
So that one, I like read it. That actually ended up being like the last one that showed up on my phone, because the internet is weird. And I like flipped through all of them, and I was like, oh, that's good. Like I might. And then I read this one, and I was like, okay, this is it. This is a concept that has been very, very important to me. And so it reminded me of a C.S. Lewis quote also. Very obsessed with C.S. Lewis. Might be unhealthy. It's fine. But he has this book that I highly recommend to everyone, called Mere Christianity. It is one of his books that will take you a while. Like, it's very meaty. I annotate all of my books, but usually it's just like a highlight and an underline here and there. My copies of all of his books, especially Mere Christianity, have just like writing all in the margins, and it's underlined, and there's arrows. It's one of the books. It wasn't Mere Christianity; it was a different one. But the cover is duct taped on.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's the last page of this book, and I remember it vividly because when I read this particular quote. This was a year and a half ago, and I had just been told that I wasn't going to get a job that I had really, really wanted and kind of thought that I was a shoo-in for. And I had like a full year of, being a substitute teacher and being a waitress, working 2 jobs, doing like youth ministry, and just like I was exhausted. I felt very run into the ground. And that was kind of like the last straw, and I was just like, I was having a rough couple of weeks. And this is exactly the moment that I ended up finishing Mere Christianity, and I was like, this is perfect, because if I had read this at any other time, it would have been like uncomfy for me to read. But in a time when it kind of felt like everything was just like collapsing, I was like, well, that's hopeful. So let me find like a good place to start, or I can just read the whole thing. So it says, but there must be a real giving up of the self. You must throw it away blindly, so to speak. Christ will indeed give you a real personality, but you must not go to him for the sake of that. As long as your own personality is what you are bothering about, you are not going to him at all. The very first step is to try to forget about the self altogether. Your real new self, which is Christ's and also yours, and yours just because it is his, will not come as long as you are looking for it. It will come when you are looking for him. Does that sound strange? The same principle holds, for everyday matters. Even in social life, you will never make a good impression on other people until you stop thinking about what sort of impression you are making. Even in literature and art, no man who bothers about originality will ever be original, whereas if you simply try to tell the truth without caring 2 pence how often it has been told before, you will, 9 times out of 10, become original without ever having noticed it. The principle runs through life from top to bottom. Give up yourself, and you will find your real self. Lose your life, and you will save it. Submit to death of your ambitions and favorite wishes every day, and death of your whole body in the end. Submit with every fiber of your being, and you will find eternal life. Keep back nothing. Nothing that you have not given away will ever really be yours. Nothing in you that has not died will ever be raised from the dead. Look for yourself, and you will find in the long run only hatred, loneliness, despair, rage, ruin, and decay. But look for Christ, and you will find him, and with him everything else thrown in. And so that last part particularly is like a rough one to read if things are going really well. You're like, what do you mean nothing that hasn't died can ever be raised? But what does that even mean? But in that moment when I read it, I was like, well, this dream that I feel like I've had for like a year and a half just died. I personally am exhausted to the point where I'm like, I just want to stop at this point. And I was like, maybe like, I was like, I'm ready to give up, honestly, like this is a lot. And then I read that and I was like, well, give up I shall, then I guess this is the move. And it was God has such incredible timing, and the longer I live, the more I look back and I'm like it's perfect. Like people are like, God's timing is perfect, but like it really is, sometimes annoyingly so. But that really, I a lot of times have a hard time letting go of and giving up certain dreams, certain relationships, certain ideas. And the peace that I felt in that moment being like, oh, like I can literally let this go, and like it's not only could it like maybe come back to me, but it'll be better. Like it'll be so much better. And I was just like, I give up. I don't even care anymore. Like, so the idea of like dying to be resurrected, that was the moment that I was like, okay, I guess this is it. And so that's an important concept and practice to me.
C.S. Lewis is like 1900, is that?
He was, oh gosh.
Oh, I just looked it up.
It's,
I did read one
it's
of the
1900s.
books I read was from him. It was a very short one, but...
Which one did you read?
A Grief Experience.
A Grief Observed.
A Grief Observed.
Yes.
And
After the death of his wife. Yeah.
Yes, that was deep. So, and then I actually did that one on an audio book, and the guy that was reading it, I don't know if he made it easier or harder to listen to, but so my translation, I just looking really quick, I'm not going to read the whole thing I wrote, but in my translation of what you just read, which translates the quote, it says, this is how I read this one: you must bury your old self and hang out in the mud and darkness and suffering in order to become the version of you God created you to be. The key is not digging up the old self up. The key is not digging the old self up before it's time. When it happens, it'll all be worth it. And obviously, you're like past that moment, so it's easy now to like look back. Right?
Yeah,
easier now.
I mean, it happens over and over again.
Yeah.
Which is, for instance, this like the past 9 months were also very rough and have been like mostly a lesson in not being self-sufficient, because I am a fiercely independent person. When I was like very young and learning to ride a bike, I yelled at my dad for holding on to it because I could do it myself.
I could see that.
And this past year, I'm like, if I had not, first of all, if I had not been able to ask for help, but like if I had not had community, like I wouldn't have had anything. And so every season of like death and resurrection is like the death of something like in me that needs to die, and like the resurrection of something better. So like my concept of like, oh, I can be self-sufficient is dead and gone. Like the lie of self-sufficiency is such like everybody's like, oh, like self-sufficiency is such a good thing. I'm like, no, it's not. It's awful. That's so lonely. And then here I am at the end with like, you know, I'm living in my own apartment, and I still am like, that's okay, because I'm still not totally self-sufficient and I don't want to be. And my sense of community and my connection to my community just grew deeper. And so I think in every season like that, it's like, yeah, it just happens over and over again with different things or the same thing, because sometimes lessons are hard to learn.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You don't think you learn the same thing 20 times.
Well, I've learned it so many.
And you're like, God, why does this keep happening? You're like, because you haven't learned yet. I'm just waiting for you. Like, as soon as you learn it, I'll move on to the next thing. And you're right, like, this quote should be something like, oh, you read it once, oh, now I remember, and then it's past. Like, if you're not feeling this, then it means you're not growing, technically. And then to me, you're just really quick on the self-sufficient, like, the ultimate self-sufficient is being okay with being by yourself, but knowing you should be around other people. And that's ultimately how you're going to, it's what God wants, the community, the church, but it's how you're going to grow the most, and it's all those things. We're running short on time. We're gonna go through the rest of the post. No, you're good time. Like I was saying, like we're gonna have to like schedule part 2. We only got a few of these in this year, but like we could have spent a lot more time in any of those areas. So I appreciate it. We aren't doing this for results. We're doing this because it's right. Too many people at times get stuck on. Well, I'm doing this because of this. I'm trying to like. How about you just say you're doing it because you know it's right, and not worry about the results. I'm not saying it's easy.
I liked that one a lot. I could talk for a long time, but we'll move on.
I just hit them with, are you trying hard enough? I'm trying to like peruse really quickly, see. Okay. Reward yourself. right? So sometimes we like set a goal and then we don't like reward ourselves that we're taking the steps to get to that goal. And I think it's important to reflect. I don't like hanging out in the past, but like, where did you come from? Where did you get to? And then celebrate if you were trying to. The one thing I wrote down is like Starbucks, right? Like, I'm not a Starbucks. I don't know why. I just feel like I probably should use something that I get addicted to, but I've already talked about like pop and pizza. But like, Starbucks seems to be the one thing. Like, even when I gave up my pizza and pop, people are like, I would never be able to get one at Starbucks. Are you a Starbucks person?
I do enjoy Starbucks. I'm a coffee person in general.
So can I change it and just say, could you give up coffee?
I have had to, actually, but.
So I'm not laying down the challenge for everybody watching. I'm not telling her she has to give coffee. I'm just throwing it out there. But what I said is, if you say I'm not going to drink for like a month, if you say January I'm not, that's in the wilderness. Let's see how I can grow and what God can teach me in that time. Like, don't celebrate you making it by like then getting the biggest, fattest Starbucks. Like, make it something else, right? Like, you could celebrate with. You know, like, here's what I wanted to buy. Something you throw in your Amazon cart. It's like, if I make this, I'm going to go buy this in my cart. Not like...
I liked the two of those together in the context of each other. Is, are you trying hard enough, and then reward yourself? Because I think both can get out of hand, but together it's very much like a good balance. So like are you did you put your all into it, and then now what do you need? And like, I think, especially right now, like in our current culture, the are you trying hard enough thing is like less perpetuated, but the reward yourself is like way up here. We're so out of balance with it. And it's very much a treat yourself thing, and I'm like, that's not. I liked the way that you explained it. It's like, it's not. I'm not saying just like, oh, like, I woke up early today, so like I'm gonna go like get Starbucks. It's like, okay, like I got everything that I washed all of my mugs, so now I'm gonna use one. I'm gonna have a nice cup of tea, and I'm gonna sit down, and I'm gonna take some time to rest because I just did a lot of work and I need to rest. And I think that the idea of like reward yourself because like you deserve it is like just, I think it's push yourself and make sure that you are giving 100%, and also be kind and gentle with yourself and know when you need to not give 100%. And so I liked those being right next to each other. I liked the way that you explained it, and I really liked the balance that it has.
I did too. I appreciate you like tying those together, because as I send them, I'm not getting feedback on these from people. So the fact that you like understood where I was trying to get to, and then people had to like marinate on the, are you trying hard enough? And then I hit them with the make sure you reward yourself the next day. So I hope that was where I was going. And then these next three all kind of like literally go together. Today was on purpose, and it doesn't mean it's going to be, you know, a walk in the park. Like, what movie is like nothing bad happens?
Is there a movie where nothing bad happens?
Like Bruce Almighty, like right when he gets the power of God, he like just he walked out and everything he wanted to happen was like,
I'm gonna be honest with you. My mom didn't let me see Bruce Almighty. She did let me watch Evan Almighty.
Oh. There's a much bigger lesson to me. I mean, don't judge. I'm not a speaker for this on behalf of Second Place Church, so but I think there's have you never seen it?
Okay, wait. Which one?
Jim Carrey is the news anchor, and his life goes in the gutter, and then he's like, God save me, and then he gets powers of God.
I'm trying to. There's one that we weren't allowed to watch
because it was more sacrilegious at the very beginning of it.
But there's another one. I think it's the one that was very Noah's Ark.
Right.
That was the one that's Evan Almighty. Yeah, that's the one we were allowed to watch. It's
more like him.
It's sort of the same gist, though, right? No, should I watch Bruce Almighty?
But anyways, yes, we.
Okay.
Yeah, when we were done recording this, Hannah's coming over.
I do have to come over anyway. I have work to do, but we can watch Bruce Almighty.
But anyways, like his first day when he gets powers of God is like
Yeah.
he could do no wrong. Like it's so perfect and beautiful, and you think that's how his life is going to be, and it turns out that's not how it is. And so when I say today was on purpose, definitely not saying that it's going to be a piece of cake. I mean, like, there will be challenges. That's a huge part of the entire last year. But today was on purpose. Then my next quote was, every moment is on purpose, to be even more specific. And then the last thing was, today is a gift. So not, it's all of those things. It's on purpose, but it is a gift. Another quote that goes along with this is, don't forget to pray, God didn't forget to wake you up. So I wrote that in there. It doesn't say today will be easy. Oh, look at this. I should read these before I start reading. It doesn't say all your wishes will be granted. Any day you can choose to better yourself, choose to love someone, choose to appreciate still being on earth is a gift. Don't take it for granted, no matter what challenges you're facing today. So that, our time. Can you guess how much time that was? It was less than an hour, but
I have no concept. That's the ADHD.
Honestly,
we just don't know.
So much in there. Thank you, Hannah Michelle.
Yeah, of course.
I hope. I know that people are going to be. I want to say inspired. I know you're going to laugh at that. Motivated, or like just. If you see her around the church, make sure you stop and say hello.
Come say hi. I'm friendly.
I
only bake sometimes.
She will talk to anybody. But so many different topics we talked about, so thank you. One life, just one. Why are we not running like we are on fire towards our wildest dreams every day? That's DJV on Fire. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit notifications, and have a good one.